It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. The guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, hey folks, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcasted weekly from a kitchen bench in Kingston, Auckland, New Zealand. And boy, it's been a busy week. Well, it's actually been a busy day or two at the bench. Since I started this, I looked at it today, I'm up to an amount of episodes that is actually about a third of a year, because I think the last one was episode 16, 316s being 48. But all that time, I've wanted to get a buffer. In other words, have a couple of shows up the sleeve in case I get incredibly busy on a week or whatever. And it's actually been really touch and go. And I think that's because I launched just before the proverbial silly season, when the world shuts down, or at least the Southern Hemisphere shuts down for most of summer, definitely for Christmas, New Year's and so on. So still managed to get a guest each week, but couldn't quite get that magical extra one or two. And now they're all starting to flow through, folks. Absolutely flow through. And so I had two people in yesterday, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then another gentleman over this afternoon. A couple of clues about the two that aren't featuring today. One is a investigative. I can't get the proper diction out for that word. Investigative journalist. And the other comes vaguely from the student radio fold of my 90s life, but has very much endured on in associated fields. Should probably be better off to say nothing about the other two. But anyway, so a couple of guests extra up the sleeve. Another one lined up next week. It's heating up, folks. It's heating up. But to this week, an idea I've had for a while. I certainly did not have a mandate just to have people from, arts, media, broadcasting, etc., and so on. I guess it's my indulgence, this podcast, even though I want as many listeners as possible to enjoy it. But I always basically wanted to have a chef on, and through a friend, I was linked up with this week's guest, Mr. Adam Rickett, Chef Adam Rickett, head chef at renowned Auckland restaurant Euro, history in New Zealand in the last 8 years at other, shall we say, on-the-map places such as the Matterhorn in Wellington, Pravda in Wellington, private chef for a while on Waiheke Island, and we just kind of talk smack about food. Non-sequential, haphazard conversations about food, because, to be fair, I think that's how I threw kind of questions and topics at him. Thanks for coming in, Adam. Thanks for laughing at my pronunciation of sous vide. So on Friday, I did my first lot of classes ever with third years, where I teach, which is an undergrad degree, third year being the final year. And that was to do with my background in broadcasting, teaching third-year radio students how to do a voice break between two pieces of music at our shiny in-house radio station at work. And I got home and thought about it and realised kind of how anti-broadcasting, I don't mean anti like, screw you, anti. I mean anti as in kind of the opposite of everything one should teach in broadcasting. This podcast perhaps is, and I had a little existential crisis with how far I've taken into that direction, in terms of I'm not editing out the ums and ahs, and I've actually realised in listening to these back over an hour and 20 that I actually and ah a heck of a lot. I don't think I used to on the radio, because I knew one shouldn't where possible. Actually, that's a lie. I've listened back to those shows as well, and I and ah, but not as much as on these. But anyway, my point being, and I also rant as I'm ranting now. My point being is, I had a little crisis about the presentation of this and why I'm doing it and where it's going and whether it's really getting listenership and whether or not I just really sound like a babbling fool. So drop me a line this week. Are you listening? Are you enjoying it? Do you mind the ums and ahs? I mean, to me, the idea is this is a conversation with the guests, not a slick radio interview. So I leave in all that stuff, all that colour around the main content to make you feel kind of like you're a well booted and suited insect on the wall. Drop me a message, man. Are you enjoying the show? Have you heard more than one episode? Who would you like to hear? Follow me, Verbal Highs, if it's Twitter. Verbal Highs Podcast, if it's Facebook. You can email me, verbalhighs@gmail.com. You can go to the website, verbalhighs.com, click through to the RSS feed, the iTunes feed, subscribe on iTunes. You can leave a comment on iTunes if you wish. That'd be lovely. You can rate it there. Enough said.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
Did you have an idea about what you want to talk about? Like, you've got some questions and stuff, and
Yep. Let's get rid of my gum. I think sounds like we could probably just shoot the breeze. I'm definitely a keen amateur cook. And then we've got kind of your career in coming to New Zealand, and then we've got the whole oyster thing, and then we've got I noticed kind of Euros kind of on a seafood buzz in general, aren't they?
yeah,
Seems to be.
yeah.
Then maybe a bit of Wellington. I spent a bit of time at the Matterhorn in my time.
Yeah. Nice, yeah.
Then I got some questions on Facebook from a few people about food. I'll ask you those. I don't want to. They're not very heavyweight, but it's all right. Okay, well, it's to shoot shit for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, easy.
So do you? I've heard this before about chefs. Like after you've done how many shifts did you do last week?
Last week, I did 6 days in the end last week.
6 days.
Yeah.
Because your head. So if anyone below you falls off, you've got to cover the
Kind of
slack,
pick it up.
Right?
My sous chef was a little bit unwell as well, so I covered a couple of her shifts. And, yeah.
So is it true that after that you just get like a KFC snack box on the way home? And you must have heard that rumour about chefs.
Yeah, that they eat junk at home.
They just go fuck it all.
Personally,
what are the best 2-minute noodles?
Mee goreng, definitely.
Oh,
always
yeah.
have some 2-minute noodles in
Or
the cupboard.
The red Japanese ones, the bigger packet. Do you not know those?
No.
Oh man.
Instant ramen, it's gained a lot of popularity over the years, especially like people like David Chang talking about how good ramen is. But
they're like my crack cocaine. They're my dirty culinary secret. I eat too many of those. Anyway. So is it true?
I stay away from the fast food, to say the truth. I probably do. I do have like a dirty little burger every month or two. Really, pizza's my thing though. Really, for like fast food, like when I crave a bit of pizza once a month, I always have to get my pizza fix.
But then pizzas, you can go really flash. Or do you mean you'll specifically go for like the $4.95 Domino's?
Oh no! Well, again, no, not really. I'd go to a restaurant. I go to Farina quite a bit and have their pizza.
Okay. So that's not really fast food. That's good quality. It's good quality pizza. Where do you reckon the best pizza spots are in Auckland?
Best pizza spots. I've been, like I just said before, Farina's the one that I kind of frequent the most. I've been there, I've been in the city nearly a year now, actually. I just tallied it up the other day. I think I've been to Farina maybe 6 times, which is pretty good.
Where is it?
It's on Ponsonby Road, just a little bit further down from Prego.
Oh, yeah. And so is it sit-in or actually takeaway pizza?
No, it's sit-in. They do deliveries as well. It's the old Toto's, and the people that own Toto's set it up, and so they still do their meter-long pizzas, but it's wood-fired, sort of, large size. Yeah, they are good.
What about of all the big kind of well-known delivery brands? What do you reckon's the best of all of them?
To tell you the truth, I don't eat a lot of them. I've had Hell's Pizza a few times since I've been in New Zealand. And I've called that one out. But again, sorry about that one.
That's all right. Well, I'll introduce you anyway.
Yeah.
So at my quite aptly my kitchen bench is Adam Rickett. He's a award-winning chef. One award won through mushroom manipulation of some sort. Which we
That was
talk
a few
about.
years ago now. Yeah.
Currently heads the kitchen at Auckland Zero. Has also chefed since being in New Zealand at Waiheki's Boat Shed Hotel and Wellington's Pravda and Matterhorn. Probably a few others there I've missed. He rescues bees occasionally. I've been looking online. Chases bluff oysters. And has been known to host a cooking master class or two. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So, if it wasn't, don't tell us porkies. But was the food thing a interest you had from kind of early on in life? Was it something you got to later, or?
I think I was always interested in cooking when I was younger. I remember making like bacon sandwiches when I was like 6 or 7, or like frying up some bacon and mixing it through pasta with a stir-in sauce, and actually enjoying being in the kitchen and cooking. And my mum was a good home cook when we were younger, like looking after 3 kids by herself, so she did a lot of cooking. And so I think a bit of it led in from there. And I didn't watch tons of TV as a kid, but like I remember watching things like Ready Steady Cook and Can't Cook Won't Cook in the UK.
How old are you then?
I'm 31.
Oh, okay. So it must have been just the beginning end of all those sort of shows. Yeah. So, like, I don't know, there's 2 sort of sets of family backgrounds to come from, you're saying, with heaps of kids to cook or something. Was she like a, overboiled 3 vegetables and meat, or like quite an adventurous cook? Because I think, New Zealand kind of often follows the UK in a lot of ways, and we come from that tradition of sort of bland, style food. Was she a bit more adventurous than that?
I'd say my mum's repertoire when we were kids was it was the the standards, the Sunday roast, the shepherd's pie, lasagnas, pork chops and applesauce and things like that. Yeah. But just good hearty food, really. Yeah.
Okay.
As we got older, and like my brother and sister started going out more and more, and it was just me and her. She like stopped cooking so much, and that's when I think I started picking up a little bit, like learn how to boil pasta and things like that. But
so, what's the secret to? I mean, it's such a deceptively simple dish, but what's the secrets to cracking a good roast? Most, if not all of the time. What are some simple things people don't think of doing?
A roast dinner. It's having the right cut of meat. It's cooking everything to the right time for the right amount of times, to the right temperatures. It's if you're cooking your vegetables, like just separate them onto different trays so that they cook evenly. Don't overcrowd the tray. Make sure you bring your meat to room temperature before you put it in the oven. There's a few very basic things, like to crack in the code to the roast. There's no major secrets. It's just having a bit of common sense and not just throwing everything in the oven. And
common sense and timing, and then the meat thing, like. It's something that I didn't used to do that I've started trying to do now, because everyone says that. But there's a kind of art to that as well. Like, how long can you leave the meat before it's too cold to serve and so on? So what are you doing with that? You're like leaving it to let the liquids go back through the whole meat, aren't you?
So you're talking about grilling a steak on the barbecue?
I'm talking about when everyone says to leave it sitting, like you said, to make sure you sit the roast. Mm-hmm. I've come from a background of family where it's like, no, get it all out straight away so it's super piping hot.
Yeah. The kids are hungry.
Why are you laughing about that? Yeah, that's right. So why do we sit the meat, and how long do we do it? And
so for example, if you're cooking a Scotch fillet, bringing it up to room temperature first. So it only takes like 20 minutes, really, 25 minutes out of the fridge. It's so that the core temperature of the steak has already started to come to temperature before you start cooking the outside of the steak. So if you say you put it on cold, the outside's going to cook, the inside's going to be cold. But if the inside's already at an ambient temperature, then it's going to come up perfectly. Right. It's going to come up a lot easier.
But to be fair, I was asking about the other end when it comes out in terms of sitting.
So for sitting, a steak, resting it is so that basically if you think about it, if you throw a piece of meat onto the grill, it all tenses up and it starts, and as it's cooking, like all the fibers, all the muscle structure, it's all tensing up. So what you do is when you let it rest, it just relaxes the meat back out. The juices can come out. It's not to put the juices back in. It's just to let everything relax out so that you've got a more tender piece of meat. Yeah. Like by rule of thumb, really, it's sort of half the amount of cooking time is resting.
But
like
if you're doing a roast for an hour and a half, you don't rest it for 45 minutes.
no, but you'd let it sit. You'd want to set like a big standing rib roast. You'd want it to rest for at least 20 minutes.
But
if it came out.
then that comes back to my other original question. That's why it has bothered people I've suggested it to in the past. Is how do you keep it, like, how do you still serve it hot enough if you sit it that long? Or does it just stay hot enough?
It would stay. So for like I would say a rib roast, it would stay warm enough. So like when you take it out, like if you're going to cook like a standing rib, you want the core temperature when you serve it to be 55 degrees. So you pull it out of the oven at around about 50, 51, and then let it rest for 20 minutes. The inside's going to still come up to temperature. It's going to slowly come up to that, that ballpark 54, 55 degrees. And then after that 20 minutes, that's when it will have come up to temperature. You carve it, and it's going to be beautiful.
Good. I feel like I should talk about this for another 50 minutes, but
that's
a good explanation.
But it's like in the restaurant. I mean, we do a 300-gram Chateaubriand at the moment, and it's a very, very popular cut of meat. And then people will come in, order it straight up, no entrees or anything. But it takes 25 minutes to cook. Even like
was it it's basically a flesh steak, is it?
Yeah. Well, the Chateaubriand, it's like the thick part of the fillet, right from the butt end, not the tail end of the fillet. Yeah. And it's a big, thick, dense piece of meat. Not a lot of fat in there, so like you don't want to overcook it. But even a medium rare, we take it out of the fridge, we bring it up to temperature, which takes 6-7 minutes above the grill, and then we flash it on the pan in the oven, and then we let it rest. And it's a long process. It's a long process to get it perfect, to get like the meat melting in your mouth and absolutely tender and delicious. It takes a while. Yeah.
So that's a lot of things. I think something a lot of people don't think of, is like that whole process in a kitchen, like. When you are really busy or getting slammed or whatever, like I just see a lot of, not meaning most by any means, but a core skill with successfully, professionally chefing being time management, eh? Like, I can't imagine if you've got, like, you must just have a process going on in your head all the time of where this is at, where that's at, where this is at, where that's at. Is timing a big part of it? And time management?
Massively. Yeah. To say time management is a massive part of the job is an understatement, really. Yeah. Especially, restaurant cooking is very different to cooking at home. Like, you can't get the food out quick enough. Like, to a customer waiting 5 minutes, it feels like 10. They wait 15, it feels like half an hour, So it's you being able to juggle like dozens of orders at a time and to get everything spot on and perfect. It's not easy, but we have a team. It's all about the team in the restaurant. It's not just one person out on their own. Like, make sure that everyone's dancing to the same tune at the same time, and we put it off. It's something that comes with a lot of experience. That time management, it's not something that you can really just pick up. It's learning your rhythm and your flow in the kitchen. It takes years to really get on top of that. That's why it takes a long time to climb up the chain of command.
Well, I was thinking early on that must be what actually almost funnels a whole lot of people to stay in the industry and a whole lot to leave, because if you can't grasp a hold of that, you're just going to have basically fucked off customers all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, that's not good for anyone.
So, because I've looked at saying, that's right, you're so right with it being different to home, because where I noticed that is like, knocking up a cooked breakfast is a pretty easy thing for me to do at this stage. But as soon as I've got more than kind of like 2 friends to cook for, I suddenly go, shit, how do I get all the eggs out at the same time? How do I do this? How do I do that? Actually, that's another thing I've always wanted to know before we go a little into your background, is I've lived with a few chefs in my time, actually, but a dude years ago taught me how to perfectly poach eggs with the maker...
the swirling motion.
No, you make a swirl with the white vinegar, and just before boiling, bang, in there. That's great for 2, but next time I've got more than 3 friends to do brekkie for, how do I get perfect poached eggs for more than 3 or 4 people?
Well, I've always found the swirling technique. That's what I was taught. Like, I worked in some hotels
with
in the UK.
Eggs,
no. Like, originally that's what I was taught. Is you swirl the water, you drop it in, you get the perfect egg. But I've found over more and more times that I've done it, especially working down in Wellington at Pravda, we did a breakfast service there, and you'd get it's about the deepness of the pot for me. Like, if you get a nice a 10-litre cooking pot. Yeah. And fill it with water, have it just off of boiling. It's got your vinegar in, I'd say 5 to 8% of vinegar. Yep. And then as long as it's not boiling and causing a big fuss for the eggs, when you drop the egg, when you crack the egg in, it falls down, because it's quite a high pot. It's got enough time as it pulls down, as the yolk as the egg sinks down,
Yeah.
like the white starts to coagulate
Yeah,
before it
yeah,
hits the
yeah.
bottom, and then it forms that nice round shape by gravity just pulling it down.
So
and you can drop
yeah.
like 15, 20 eggs in one of those pots. And
Yeah. Okay,
You just got to be quick in getting them out so they don't overcook and crack.
next time. That was it. Yeah, man. It's amazing as soon as you start dealing with volume, how quickly things start to fall apart.
Yeah. I don't envy those breakfast services that they don't to say the
that's
truth.
that's what I say.
Yeah,
That's what I
it's a
was
noble
getting at, because
cause.
I have worked a lot of hospo over the years, on and off, and that's right. And like, it seems like in the scheme of things, a simple meal to get out, but what customers don't often realise is in a busy kitchen, it's, speaking of timing and everything, it's like, so a lot of little different things to get onto the plate. So you said all this stuff takes years to kind of perfect and so on. Were you like into chef training straight out of school, or did you do anything else first? Or
No, but I've had a couple of other jobs that haven't been in hospitality and kitchens. But like since I was 15, I first stepped into the kitchen, and it was just like a local country pub back in the UK. You know, deep frying breaded mushrooms and julienne and iceberg lettuce, but or chiffonade and iceberg lettuce, but nothing glamorous really to start off with. No.
So
It was just a job.
So how did it turn from a job to did the kind of next level thing take hold once you got here, or?
I started. No,
Because
not.
you've been here 6 years, eh?
8 years.
8 years. Sorry.
8 years in June since I stepped foot in the
Wow.
country. Yeah, it's quite a while. No, like I think it was really like so. I took that first job and I moved on to another pub and worked in 3 pubs in my hometown.
Yeah.
Before realizing when I was 17 that I kind of wanted to see a different town and live in a different place. Moved down to Cornwall in the southwest of England, which was where I ended up spending another 8 years before moving to New Zealand. And I think it was when I moved down to Cornwall, because I'd already been working in kitchens, I took a job in a kitchen down there, and it was pure survival, really. I already had basic knife skills, knew how to juggle orders and keep on top of the certain aspects of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I just started doing it down there. Ended up in an a la carte restaurant when I was about 18, where everything was prepped fresh from scratch every day. And I think that's when I really got the appreciation for produce and for, the mise en
Instead
place.
of opening the frozen package
Yeah.
from the pub.
Like I said, it was nothing glamorous at the start. Like I was just 15 years old looking for a summer job, And
but you get your basic skills in there, eh? And that's funny with the whole fresh produce thing and so on. And because I was last in, actually, 2 things. I was last in the UK in 2000, but also I was frickin' skint, so that probably reflected in what I was eating and stuff. But it felt like back then, no disrespect to your home country, but that overall kind of food culture didn't feel as far ahead as here. That's kind of changed a lot now, eh? Like, or am I just? Are you in complete disagreement that?
No. I can agree to a certain level. Like it's a double-edged sword, really. Like when I first moved to New Zealand, what I first noticed was the cafe culture, which is what we don't have in the UK, or we didn't back then. When I first left, you had like good sandwich shops and good cafes and stuff, but like it wasn't something that was seen that people would spend a lot of money on. Like it was the greasy spoon,
part of the culture.
or part of
meet you there,
and the flat white and the eggs benny on the weekends and the brunch. Like back then, like didn't see a lot of people brunching. But on the other end of that, so like that was quite far behind, quite far removed. But on the other hand, like the restaurant scene has always been strong in the UK. There's always been pioneering. It's always been on the forefront. British cuisine sort of like merged with that heavy French Italian influence in like the 80s, and it's gone strong from there.
I knew it was because of my budget. I knew it was because of my budget range.
I could never afford to eat out at restaurants.
I kind of knew it was wrong as it was coming out. Yeah, because that's right. There is a great tradition of more high.
But you're right. It's
restaurants.
the day-to-day respect for food. I think like moving to New Zealand, I saw that there was a little bit more respect for food on a daily basis as opposed to the UK. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, because I was bang smack in the middle of London as well, and I guess it just felt like it was easier to get a hold of kind of green, crunchy stuff here than it was being bang in the middle of there.
And cheaper.
Is that still the case now, though?
I don't know. I think pound for pound, it's hard to say, right? Cost of living compared to the UK to New Zealand, because I've been over here for so long now. There's very few things that I still compare, and I never really convert anymore. But it's when I go back to the UK, I find that the supermarkets now can be slightly cheaper than, like, say, central Auckland, but everything's expensive in Auckland, right?
It's
and
ridiculous. You can't find a house, and you think you'll go back though?
To the UK?
Yeah.
No, I don't have many plans to. Like, I'm fairly firmly rooted in New Zealand now. I'm looking towards, doing my own thing in the coming years. And, yeah, it's never really been massively on the cards to return. But who knows? Who knows?
So, somewhere I deduced, I don't know if I was looking, maybe your Twitter or just some of the things I found online. It seems you're, where you are at the moment, which is Euro, is quite seafood focused, but also it seemed like you do like a good cut of meat. You don't strike me as someone who'll ever end up like a vegan or vegetarian chef.
No, most likely not.
Yeah.
Massive respect to all the vegans and vegetarians out there, though. Choose your path.
So how have you found that in New Zealand, like the sort of food that's available? You talk a little bit about the oyster mission you did a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah, it was
Is that actually part of your job too? They say, hey, go down there, or did you just do that yourself?
It was offered if I wanted to go, and excuse me, it's definitely something that I was looking forward to doing. It's like a really good experience to go down, like bluff oysters being world renowned, and to actually see where they're coming from, to have the respect, to go down and learn the respect for what it takes to get them up out of the ocean.
So what does it take, man? Yeah, I don't even because I noticed you were just talking to me a little bit about it before we turned the mics on, essentially. Yeah, I don't know any of the process. I mean, I know you float a boat on the water and get out there, but what's involved in actually getting good oysters?
For the bluffs, like a majority of the New Zealand oysters, the Pacific rock oysters, they're all farmed, so they all grow on beds and they get lifted up and removed. But like bluff oysters are a dredged oyster, so they grow naturally in the wild, and they have to dredge for them. Dredging is another story. We could probably spend a little while talking about the pros and cons of dredging, or the cons.
It's not ideal for
It's not ideal,
sea,
no, definitely not. But anyway, so they're a dredged oyster, and there's the limited bluff season that the boats are allowed to go out and trawl for them. So they go out. Basically, I went out on the first boat of the season. We left harbour at about 10:30 on the last day of the month, so that we were out at the beds ready for midnight. Yeah. Like midnight, the first dredge comes up, and basically they get dropped. The dredge gets dropped in front of you, and you're sorting through all the shell. I was there for 10 hours before we turned around.
Just bottom of ocean, like old gumboots.
No, we didn't actually see any
Nokia
rubbish.
Cell phone from 1996.
Lots and lots of oyster shells. A lot of shells.
So a lot of people are munching on them out there and then dropping the shells back in.
Oh no, a lot of them are like. This is the problem with the bluff oyster at the moment. Is like they were wiped out by disease. Like a lot of them in the 90s, and it's never quite recovered from it. And they still test the waters regularly every season to make sure that they're good to go still. And I think, I was speaking to some fishermen when I was down there that have been doing it for 20 years, and they'd go out for 3 or 4 hours and get like a boat full, 120 cases, and we were out there for 10 hours solid, and there's no break for 10 hours. It's like you're being in a kitchen and you're going for it.
And you're also bobbing up and down and
bobbing up and down, motion sickness. Gotta love it. So they're out there for 10 hours.
The last thing you feel like was an oyster. Sorry, was it?
They're out there for 10 hours sorting through these shells, trying to find the right size ones, and we've got to respect them.
I know that you said you don't know a lot of the backstory, but I'm hazarding a guess that was some kind of human interference that led to this disease in the 90s. Do we even know? Do you know?
I'm not sure exactly what caused
you don't
the
have to
disease.
Google it. That's all right.
No, I've got the name of it is.
It's a scary sort of sign. So does that mean that these already reasonably pricey delicacies are kind of even more out of reach now, or has it sort of affected what oysters will cost to get onto the plate?
They rise maybe 50 cents to $1 a dozen every season, but like everything else does with inflation, right? So I'm not sure if the amount of them is being reflected in the price yet. I think that's something that we'll see in the years to come, though, because seeing how few there are down there at the moment was kind of scary. And,
for you to come back, that's right, as sort of someone from the mainland and go,
mainland.
Shit, that doesn't look good, it's worrying. Were they pretty, was it like one of those Canadian big crab TV shows? Were they quite a rugged bunch, or
Deadliest Catch?
Yeah,
Deadliest Catch Bluff.
Were the fisher folk, cut from the land, as it were?
Oh, they're all pretty tough tough people down
'Cause
there,
it's
really.
been a tough part of the world, right?
Yeah, I mean the Fovo Strait is renowned as being
gnarly.
one of the roughest seas. The night we were out there, they said was incredibly calm.
Yeah.
I still found it to be a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit nauseating to say the least.
And then so you were out. So you went down on behalf of Euro. You got some for you had some of your own quota. So you got to have some for yourself, and then took some back to the restaurant. Is that right?
Yeah, so basically, we went down to pull up the first ones of the season. You get your personal quota, which everyone on the boat gets, and then basically I went out with one of the companies that supplies us. So I went out on one of their boats and then flew the oysters back up, with Air New Zealand.
What do you think of oysters? Like they're a some people are like, I don't kind of see the big deal with how sought after they are for how they kind of go down and so on. I really like them. Are you a big oyster man yourself?
I do enjoy oysters, yeah. If I'm going out and I'm having a meal, then I do normally order a couple to start. I wouldn't sit down and go and chow down on a dozen for my meal, to tell you the truth. But I do appreciate the flavour profile and the complexity that you get from certain oysters.
Them, is that true?
I
find that one weird.
I think that's a bit of a myth, really. I mean,
if I'm spending that, I want to chew.
It's spending that amount of money. You're not allowed to chew it; just swallow it.
I think I might be a seafood bogan. I mean, I kind of prefer scallops, to be honest.
I do
like a good oyster.
2 or 3 chews and down the hatch. Yeah.
And what do you do? How do you prep them? Tell me, how do you get them onto the plate? What have you guys been doing?
We shuck them, serve them on ice with lemon segments and mignonette, which is like a white wine vinegar with diced shallots. They're very, very simple, very classic. But I mean, there's you can serve oysters a few different ways. Tempura is quite popular. Kilpatrick, which is like with pancetta and Worcestershire sauce.
What's salsa vide as a style of cooking? I read something somewhere you were embarking on that, and that it's a notoriously difficult style of cooking.
On what, sorry?
Salsa vide, is that how you pronounce it? Salsa vide? Sousvide?
Oh, sous vide.
I thought it was salsa vide.
That is hilarious.
What's salsa vide then? That's something.
I thought you were saying salsa verde, which is like green. It's an Italian green salsa.
I think that I confused that with reading the other.
Sous vide, yeah.
I'll leave that in.
Sous vide cookery. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Okay.
Sous vide cookery.
Yeah.
Oh, there's we only use it for one thing at the moment at the restaurant, but it's something that I've done a lot of over the years. It's gained, it's one of those things pioneered mainly by Heston Blumenthal, I suppose, was the first one that started shouting about it in mainstream. It's just a way of like cooking food to a precise temperature, and generally used for meat. But you can use it for eggs and vegetables and stuff. And the possibilities are endless with it, really. We don't use a lot of it at the restaurant at the moment.
But aren't you trying to cook all meat to
everything
a precise temperature? Is it done in a certain way? Is it?
Generally you'd vacuum pack them into bags, so vacuum pack bag, and then cooked in a water bath. Sous vide means under pressure. That's translated from French. And originally the sous vide they used to use mason jars, they did it all the way back 100 years ago. There were sous vide things in boiling water in mason jars.
So what's the idea? You get a really tender. I'm trying to think how it would be if it was packed like that and you're boiling it. So it would be really true to the flavour of the meat. Because are you just packing that in, or are you packing in, You can
you can sear the meat before you pack it. You can put aromats, herbs, spices, oils, butters, anything in there ready to infuse into it. Because obviously when you put it in the compression chamber and it seals, it shoves everything that you've got in that bag into the meat or into the produce, whatever's in there.
And so what makes it particular to other styles of cooking meat, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, at the moment we use it for our lamb rump, which is the only thing we use it for, because I think a sous vide lamb rump is pretty out of this world. I mean, we can get a perfectly cooked lamb rump every time, but we cook it at 55 degrees for 4 hours, and just basically the meat relaxes to that 55 degree temperature. It doesn't get shocked by a high temperature and then relaxes or rests into it we were talking about before. The whole time it's put in at 55 degrees and it can just relax in it, and it cooks it to the core temperature without causing the meat or the fibres any stress. And then when you put it out, we just sear it off in the pan, baste it with foaming butter, garlic and thyme.
I feel like
it's absolutely beautiful.
I feel like we should be...
You getting hungry?
Sampling some of these things as we go. Putting your talk to your work. Yeah. So I was thinking with that, we come back to that classic, small town pub grub, very...
Who are using sous vides now.
What will you use? What
they would be using the sous vide technique in these pubs. Really.
Oh, would they?
Yeah.
What's that?
If it's for, so to answer your question before, it's for consistency of product. It eliminates a lot of the, we have the skills and the chefs to be able to produce a perfectly cooked lamb rump every time. But we use the sous vide for me personally because it's the texture, it's a textural thing. But these pubs, the Gordon Ramsay pubs, like in the UK, for instance, they use a lot of sous vide stuff. Like they have centralized prep kitchens that cook everything, and then they send it out to multiple locations. And everything's cooked perfectly, so they don't have to worry about.
For it as, well, my great grandmother used to do it. It's called boil in the bag. Yeah,
it is pretty much boil in the bag.
Back to what I was going to ask is, so going from there to now, I was thinking, so it's really interesting. I was thinking you're employed by your employers, who at the moment are Euro. So you've, their I guess their bottom line with you guys is they want to get as many covers as possible and serve as many customers as possible. But then, for a chef who's really into their craft, there's kind of a real research and development side to this. Do you know what I mean? So, like most places you work, do they give you time to just kind of try a little bit of this and do a little bit of that and experiment with this style or is that sort of a thing you have to do, kind of engage in your spare time?
I think it's always you need to make the time to be able to develop. I mean, I get to do specials, and then from specials they normally turn into like actual dishes that will appear on the menu. It just depends on the time of year and on the time of the week, really. Sorry, not so much the year. For me at the moment, we're incredibly busy. I've only got to do a couple of specials in the last week. Yeah. Just because of like sheer volume of covers that we're doing at the moment, especially with like the bluff season and the tourist season, getting a lot of cruise ships in. But it's one of those things like you have plenty of time to be able to develop dishes, and then it's also something that I take into my personal time as well. Really, I do a lot of research. I read a lot of blogs. I've got like a wall of books at home. I watch a lot of shows on the subjects, and I mean, there's an amazing amount of resources out there for chefs at the moment. It's incredible.
That's the interesting thing is it's really come into the public eye in a big way, with all the TV shows in the last, what would you say, 15 years? Probably 10, 15 years?
Yeah, 10, 15 years, yeah.
Who do you like and who pisses you off to watch?
To say I don't really. Most of the things that I watch myself are geared towards industry and professionals. I don't watch so many of the the classic TV shows. I suppose that
a little bit below.
Well, not so much below. I mean, like
I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
I quite like Come Dine With Me. Have you ever seen that?
It's like the
UK one. The commentary is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's like a grown-up Stewie Griffin from Family Guy is the guy hosting it. Yeah,
those surge of TV shows for the home cook or just for the average Joe. I suppose there's so many of them now. But like the things that interest me, there's a lot of really good stuff on the internet and Netflix. You've got like Chef's Table, Mind of a Chef. There's some great YouTube channels such as the Vice channel, Munchies. It just has it connect basically what things like that are doing are connecting the industry globally through the internet, so we can see what everyone else is doing without actually being with them. So
with Munchies, do you even mean stuff like that? Fuck, That's Delicious, that Axel Bronson show, and so you think all those things are a really good contribution to.
I do, maybe not so much like Axel Bronson. He's absolutely hilarious to watch. But the good ones are the things like the Chef's Night Out or the Munchies Guide 2, which would like cover like an entire area. Chef's Night Out is quite interesting to see what chefs around the world are doing in their spare time as well, and like the restaurants that they eat at, which is always a good one. Yeah,
right. So there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot of resources,
and then and it's good. Not just for me. I like watching and seeing what these guys are doing. But there's other things out there. There's a really good YouTube channel called Chef Steps, and they've got their own website. And it's great for young cooks to sort of have a look at a vast range of cooking techniques at once without sort of being told by their chef what they need to do. I'd like any young chef that comes to me and says because I asked the same question when I was about 21. It's like, how do I progress in the industry? How do I get better? I always felt quite removed from it because I couldn't afford to eat out at restaurants, and I because I was as a junior chef, it's hard. So it's like And I got an amazing piece of advice from a chef when I was about 21. He said that if I didn't study, all I'd ever be is a great line cook. And good on you for being a great line cook, because the industry needs them. But if you want to progress, you've got to study, you've got to take in the industry, you've got to see what has been done around you. And as soon as I started opening books,
Well, I said to you, research
that
and
was
development.
that was
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
I started progressing. I started looking, because up until that point, I'd only ever been told what my chefs had told me. And which is going to be, I'm not the bearer of all knowledge. I can only take my chefs as far as I can take them in the kitchen I'm running at the time, for the style that we're doing. Like, if they go out and research and develop themselves, they're going to progress a lot quicker. A lot quicker.
So by line chef, does you just mean someone who just pumps out? What's a line chef?
A line chef, you could be a commie through to a senior CDP, I suppose. Really, someone that's on a section, working it, and has the responsibility for the mise en place on a daily basis, and is there for service every day.
Is that a line chef?
That'd be a line chef. Yeah, I'm a line chef. Like, I'm a head chef now, and of a busy 120-seater restaurant. But I'm still a line cook. I cook. That's what I do. Like, I'm on that line every single day. Obviously, as a head chef, I have other commitments as well. Like, there's a bit of back of house stuff. I'm on my phone to supplies constantly, which can be a little bit draining first thing in the morning when I just want to get on the line and cook. But I'm a line cook at heart. I started cooking on the line, and that's how I see it. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, if you're right in there, it's like there's your quality control.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're out the back office all the time, you don't know what's going on. So you mentioned when you mentioned junior chefs and watching Chef Steps before, I thought you meant home chefs at first, but I'll go down that route anyway.
For the avid home cook.
Well, I was just thinking, I don't know how to put this so it's too big a question to ask, but maybe 5 key items every home chef kind of would need if they're actually quite serious about cooking. That's really putting you on the spot.
Key items.
Okay,
5 of them.
No, I'll do. We'll break it down. You're going to spend money on one all-purpose frying pan. What should you look for? Why are you laughing?
For me personally, I'd go to Briscoe's and get the best one for the best price.
Yeah, I got a cast iron one from Briscoe's in here.
Cast iron at home. If you're going to have
$10 one here that's non-stick, but
if you're going to have one pan at home, get a cast iron skillet. Yeah, definitely.
Non-stick.
When you first buy a skillet, it's going to stick a little bit, but the more you use it, it develops its own sort of non-stick wear after time, And never scrub it out, just rinse it out, and wipe it.
Like this?
Perfect. Beautiful.
Oh, I haven't oiled it. This is really embarrassing.
Always oil your skillet. God.
Yeah.
Come on, mate.
I don't think I've been heating it up enough because I've been having some issues with it.
My skillet lives on the side at home, and it's probably about 4 years old. I think it was originally from Briscoe, so it's not an expensive one.
This is from Briscoe's beef.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. You can do your eggs on there. You can do your meat on there.
I sort of feel like
definitely give it a scrub, oil it, and keep it on your stove.
Give it a scrub. It needs to oil it. And so what? I mean, everything in there. Good steak. I've made some great curries.
I made a lamb ragu last night for me and my partner, and I basically had a leg of lamb that I cut into 4, seared off, and then just braised it in a skillet that size with a lid on it. Yeah.
So I had friends over. I had family over actually, and did fish, and I fish with the skin still on. So almost like cooking a steak, but obviously a couple of minutes each side or whatever.
Yep.
But I don't know, man. How long do you leave them? Because I think I didn't leave it long enough. I ended up with just badness in the pan.
Yeah.
Do they need quite a long heat?
Fish,
right?
like once you learn how to cook, pan fry a piece of fish, it is incredibly easy. Once you know how to do it.
Well, I know, but what went wrong? It must be the heat.
You want
to
make sure your pan needs to be just below smoking point, right? And heat the pan up with the oil in so that the oil's getting to the same temperature. Yeah. Make sure your fish fillet's dry. So like if you've bought it like vacuum packed from a shop, open it up. Dry it off on a piece of chuck's cloth or a piece of paper towel. Season with salt, because basically what the salt will do will create and it's not you don't want to let it suck out the moisture. You want to season it just before it goes in the pan, so that it creates basically like a bit of a layer between the fish and the pan. It stops it from sticking. And then leave it. Don't touch it. Don't move it. Don't shake it. Just let it cook. So if you're doing a sort of each inch
I know what you mean.
thick piece of fish.
Yeah.
leave it in the pan, leave it for like 4 minutes, and then you'll see around the edges as the edges start to go white and start getting crispy.
You put it in earlier. I thought you said you let it get real hot first, the pan.
No, make sure the pan's just below smoking point. It needs to be really hot when you put the fish in. If it's not hot enough, the fish is going to stew. You basically want, as soon as the fish comes into contact with the pan, you want it to be forming a crust. You want it to be forming a layer. That's it. It's steamed. You steamed it.
Broiled or whatever.
Ruined. Ruined.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look.
It's like a pan-fried piece of fish. Once you know how to do it, it's such a beautiful thing. Finish it with some butter and some lemon juice. Dip your bread in that butter afterwards. It's off the chain.
That's I know what I do with other pans, but with this I think they just because any chef with their salt that I asked said just get one of these, but I think they just take a little while longer to learn how to drive, and I think it's that heating thing because I'm so used to everything else just kind of heating up.
But
instantly.
for fish, next time use your non-stick. If you're not familiar with cooking fish, use a non-stick pan.
So we got a pan. What about?
Still need your ingredients.
So when I was in, pull out all my. I won't pull this out. It's going to start getting weird. We're going to end up with all my stuff on. But I was in Japan and I was like, well, if I'm ever going to be anywhere and buy a knife,
I'll
buy one in Japan.
Japanese knives.
But again, because people listening, I've asked a few people what they want to know about cooking just for their home, and someone asked me, realistically. New Zealand dollars wise, I mean, and just shopping locally, what sort of money does the home chef need to drop on one good knife? What's a good all-purpose?
The home chef.
Yeah, just one. Rather than a set or whatever, you just want to buy one nice.
You could go to like a specialist knife store in Auckland, and you could spend about $45 on a knife that's gonna get you through. Yeah, an Arcos brand or something. You're not going to use it a lot. It's going to be sharp and it's going to stay fairly sharp. If you want to go like sort of $65, $75, you get a Victorinox with a plastic handle. Yeah. I've still got my Victorinoxes that are over like 10 or 12 years old now.
But they're not what you use, are they?
No, I don't still use them. They were at home. I use them at home occasionally. They're still razor sharp because I've looked after them.
Yeah.
I actually use German knives at the moment. But I've got a couple of Japanese ones that
You're a single bevel guy or a double bevel guy?
Double.
Yeah. That's some technical talk, listeners. That's some stuff I learnt knife shopping. The Japanese are traditionally single bevel. I'm sure you're aware of this. A lot of their knives are. I'm not sure why that is. It just seems to be the way they make them. With that, who cares? The single double thing. Why do people get? I got lost in this online wormhole of professional chefs discussing the merits of both.
Yeah.
So what?
Personally, like if you're talking about for the home cook, it's not going to make too much of a difference, really.
But for you guys, so what we're talking about, everyone, so you don't have to Google it, is basically whether or not there's serration the right word? Whether or not there's it's to a point on both sides of the
Japanese
of the cutting edge
and the
Japanese
knife. The Japanese sashimi knives, for instance, would only have the one edge. Personally, all of my knives have always been double beveled.
Yeah.
Like you can understand, like for something as a sashimi knife, which is going to make the same cut every single time. You're only going to cut the fish that one particular way. It's never really going to touch a chopping board, which will help blunten it. And lose its edge. For me personally, my knives, I use more as all-rounders. I mean, I have filleting knives and boning knives and whatnot, but the thing I use the most is my chef's knife, my cook's knife. It's like 28 centimeters long, and it's double beveled. It's got a sort of faux bone handle. It's white. It's a beautiful knife. I've had it for about 4 years now, and I use that for pretty much everything that I do on a daily basis.
Was that on an overseas trip or something, or?
No, I bought that in New Zealand. It was when I was leaving. It was actually when I was leaving Pravda down in Wellington. I bought that. Yeah, it's sort of
How was the time in Wellington, man? So Matterhorn for how long and Pravda for how long?
I was at the Matterhorn just over a year. I was at Matterhorn. I was at Pravda for 3. Interesting time in Wellington. I absolutely love that city. I think it definitely left a piece of my heart down there. For sure.
It is amazing. When I grew up there, I left there. I was about 22 or 23, and people would say, yeah, exactly as you say, go, except for the weather. And I'd go, what are you talking about? Because that's all I'd known.
You don't notice when you're there.
But when I go back now, I go, yeah, except for the weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's got a unique. It'll sound hippie or whatever, but some cities just have a unique feel, and that place. I don't think Auckland's quite.
I've never lived in a place. I've done a little. I've lived in a few places in my years, and like Wellington was one of the few places I've lived where I don't know. You just feel an incredible sense of welcomingness, if that's even a real word, when you arrive there. Like, especially for the hospitality scene, it's so close knit down there. Yeah. And I just happened, like when I first moved there, I met a couple of really nice people who introduced me around, and I got to meet.
You say it just happened.
A lot
That's
of people.
like pretty much everyone's story of moving to Wellington for anything. I just met these people, and they introduced me to everyone.
Yeah, and then that was it. I was like part of the family down there. Like, no, great times there. Because I was 25 when I moved down there. It was my first head chef position. I got to move to Wellington to take the job at Pravda, so I was quite young to step into that sort of role, but like grabbed the bull by the horns, and I loved Wellington. Like I ended up leaving for certain reasons that didn't reflect on the actual city itself, but I needed a bit of a break, which is why I moved to Waiheke to the boat shed. But great city. Yeah,
and then it's funny, it's sort of I don't want to sound like it's probably not ideal to sound like I'm running down Auckland. I'm not. But in terms of that initial thing you described, I found sort of the opposite here. It's quite hard initially
it is.
But then I think, like you say, I mean, just even on a most practical level, it's probably geography, Well,
that's the other thing as well. Like, everything's a lot, like Wellington's a lot smaller. There's only 400,000 people there. I think there's nearly 3 million in Auckland. It's a lot more spread out into its neighbourhoods, and it's not as easy to get around or navigate. No.
So what's different? Because I think often, you just go, there's New Zealand's eating habits, there's Australia's eating habits. Is there anything different between Auckland and Wellington, kind of customer habit wise, food wise, what you present wise?
I think Auckland is a much more diverse city in general. There's a lot more going on here as opposed to Wellington. Like, Wellington is definitely a hospitality town, it's a student town, it's an artsy town. And like, those are the sort of core people that are going out and eating at restaurants. And
what was the last thing? A student town or what?
And an artsy town. There's a lot of good music. Calm down. There's a lot of great musicians and artists and designers that all come from Wellington and live in Wellington. And I think it's got that, like you said, that kind of artsy scene. And that's different to Auckland, where there's just like so many people of so many different backgrounds, and there's just so much going on that there's trying to tailor to a lot more whims up here than in Wellington. I think Wellingtonians are, they're a lot more relaxed. Should I say that on a podcast in Auckland? Fine. Like, but like, Wellingtonians, like, they're a lot more accepting.
We go worldwide, and we have a big Wellington listenership.
Yeah. Big up Wellington.
So you ate a few good student Malaysian dishes then down there.
Yeah, there's those good like $10 spots.
I had no
tons of those in Auckland as well.
Where do you if you do go there, you might not because it's such a big city, but on that main strip on Dominion Road, where do you rate in all of those little?
I'm terrible with names, but there's like
half of them you don't even know the name.
No, I don't even know. No, there's like spicy.
The red one next to the
the spicy hot one. Is it spicy hot or red hot or something like that?
Now we're both gonna. There's Shaolin Kung Fu Noodle on one corner. You can't miss that name. Then of course there's like New Flavour and Barilla or something. Which
Barilla dumplings, Lucky dumplings, they're good.
Yeah. And so there's somewhere near there called Spicy. Spicy House.
Spicy House. That's the one. That's the one.
Okay,
it's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are sort of like the late night eats as well, because they're open late, so a lot of hospitality staff go there late at night.
Don't you find it so weird? Like, even most of my hospital years were in Melbourne, and that's it. Like, when I left the bar that I was working at, you could either go, I don't know how well you know the middle of Melbourne, but anyway, you could either go left and it'd be like Burger King, McDonald's, or you could go right, and there was a couple of really good Chinese joints open till like 3-4 in the morning. I think even later. And it was like that in a lot of the city. Like, I find it's a weird thing in New Zealand how most things shut really early, Like, what do you reckon that's about? I guess we just don't have the...
I think it's population
to support it,
There's not enough people going out. I mean, you can still walk up, like... you can still walk through certain parts of the city at like 2 a.m. and there'd be no people around, like on a Friday night, and you think, where are all the people? It's just a population thing. Like, there's just not as many people here, and so there's not as much... need for it. Yeah. And then, but there's those like small concentrations of places like on Dominion Road that do stay open, and those are the ones that people go to. I know I've heard of like restaurants trying to do like the late night eating thing, and it doesn't work because there's just not enough people going to them.
The Ponsonby Social Club had the bar on Ponsonby Road had that place next door open for a while.
Late night diner.
Yeah. I think that's gone now.
I'm not sure. to tell you the truth.
Yeah. So where to? Anything you want to talk about food-wise?
Food-wise?
Yeah.
Well, you're the man with the questions, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Okay. I'll ask another listener question. It seems we're definitely not in the fine dining category here with these questions, but Paul,
Hi, Paul.
38. You know, like in the magazine. Paul, 38 asks, where are the best fish and chips in Auckland?
The best fish and chips in Auckland.
Fish and chips.
Does
it still sound like that when we say
fish and chips?
Fish and chips.
No, I've kind of toned it out.
Do people back home go, man, you're sounding like really New Zealand?
Well, like when I speak to people, well, that's it. People here still think that I sound like an Englishman, which I quite clearly do. And when I speak to people back home, they kind of pick up on the little twang.
Yeah.
You know, people that can pick up that I roll my R's a little bit when I talk, which is my southwest days from the UK. But yeah, I've got a bit of an all over accent. But the fish and chips is I like the place up in Greyland. It's quite nice, the fish market up in Greyland, just next to Uptown Bounce.
Yeah, yeah.
Does a pretty good fish and chips.
Yeah,
yeah.
And what makes well, obviously it's going to be not using frozen everything, especially fish.
Yeah, fresh
but
fish.
What else?
Fresh batter.
What is it that people do that make it? Because again, it seems like something that if everyone who had a fish and chip shop could be bothered, they could do well. So what makes it good? Because I think it is a real universal dish, you know?
It is a universal dish, and it's quite different over here to the UK. So I said that I don't make a lot of comparisons to here at the UK anymore. There's a few things I do, and fish and chips is one of them, I've got to say.
Yeah. The hard-boiled eggs in the big jars?
The pickled eggs, the pickled gherkins, the big jar. I remember my mum used to buy those. It used to gross me out. Now I love pickled gherkins.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I
unbelievable.
got really into pickling for a while, yeah. And the cones of chips. Sorry. So what's the difference? Is it you sounded a little homesick there.
I think it's just like the batter. Really, like, okay, to make a good fish and chip shop, like you want to be battering your fish to order, really, and letting it sit a little while.
Yep.
Like, you know, in the UK, like if you go to a fish and chip shop, like I'm not saying that this is the best way to serve freshly battered fish, but they have them like sat under like a light, you know, for like because they get busy and they like keep battering and battering and battering, and they sit them under lights before they get wrapped up, so they dry out a little bit before, like, you know, you just
under lights. What is the
like
lights?
like a heat lamp, you know,
and
so it dries the batter out a little bit more, so it gets a little bit crispier.
Before you drop it in the
This is like real dirty food talk here. This is the sort of thing that we do at Euro, but like it is like, I just think like the art of the fish and chip, like you want the batter to be crispy, and it's going to be crispy the drier it is, right? So I think if it dries out under the light for a little bit before it gets wrapped up.
Never see anyone doing that here.
No, because they are done fresh to order, which is a good thing. But like, you think about it, like when you take the fish out, it goes down to resting your meat again. Like if you take a battered piece of fish out the fryer, put it straight into a paper, you know what happens when you batter something is essentially the inside of it steams, right?
Yeah.
So the fish is steaming inside the batter's getting crispy, the fish is perfectly steamed in the middle.
Yeah.
You pull that out and you don't let it rest, like the steam's still trapped in there. You put it and wrap it up in paper straight away, that steam just goes through the paper, gets soggy, gets wet. It's not crispy batter. You pull your fish out, you let it rest, you let the juices come out of the fish, you let the batter dry out a little bit more, it's going to be crispier.
And so this is done UK-wide generally?
Yeah.
So something's happened here. There's been a breakdown in
and like,
communication.
Make your own chips, people, please. Like buying in the McCain's, like that's the done thing. Like,
I think
I don't get it.
That's a culture that has changed in my lifetime, and I think it's just because we have more mass-produced food in general. But I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, when I was a kid growing up in New Zealand, that they were chopped in the store. But when you think about how much work that is, you can see why people spend that bit extra. And,
for sure.
But what I'm genuinely curious about this too. I would have thought, and I get the logic totally with something like fish being frozen and then served later on, but I would have thought a frozen potato isn't that far off. Like, why do you say make your own chips, make your own chips? Are they really that different when they're out of the bag?
Yeah, for sure. Like, chips that come out of a bag frozen. It's not, I love frozen chips, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, like French fries. I don't mind a portion of French fries. We use frozen French fries at the restaurant. We use like really expensive ones that are absolutely delicious. But like,
they're $9 each in the bag. There's 47 in each bag.
There's nothing wrong with a frozen French fry, but just for me, fish and chips, like, you know, when they're chunky cut and they're just basically double cooked. So like they basically chip them themselves, cut them into the shapes, blanch them once in hot oil, let them cool down, and then blanch them again. You just get like dare I say it, a little bit soggy. Which is the way...
That is the British way, yes.
That is the British way with a fish and chip, you
yes,
know? And then, I think, for me personally, it's a nostalgic thing, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
smother them in malt vinegar
Yeah.
with a side of mushy peas. And if you're in the southwest or the north, a pot of gravy. Yes, gravy on fish and chips.
Mushy. So that's almost like you guys almost got a poutine thing going on there without the cheese.
Without the cheese, yeah.
Gravy and... How do we get here? Sorry, head chef of
Talk
Euro.
about guilty
Head
pleasures.
chef of Euro.
Should we talk about something a bit more high-end? Or?
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm kidding.
So what's...
Or while we're on the subject, though, 2 best names for fish and chip shops. 1, the Cod Scallops. And 2, a Salt and Battery.
I quite like the grill next door. So yeah, what is flying off the menu where you are at the moment?
Fish, believe it or not. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I was thinking when you said that, when you said, I probably shouldn't be talking about this being head chef of blah 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 blah. I thought surely there's still a fish and chips on the menu because there is one everywhere. There's some.
We do it by
variation of
request. You can request fish and chips, and we do it because we've always got like a nice tempura batter for our tempura oysters. So people do request it for the kids as well, and we'll even do there's a few off-menu items that we do.
Sorry, hit us down that route again. So what is what is it that you're kind of most selling to people at the moment? What are the dishes that?
Fish is selling off the charts at the moment. We can go through kilos of fish a day. There's this one dish, our Gurner dish, which is done in the wood-fired oven. So we just brush it with butter and a little bit of salt on the skin, push it through the wood-fired oven, which is at 350 degrees.
Yeah.
Cooks in about between 4 and 6 minutes, depending on how far down the oven it is.
Yeah.
Serve that with a roasted cauliflower puree. A citrus Grenoble, which is a citrus segments of blood orange, grapefruit, lemon, orange, mixed with burnt rosette, capers and breadcrumbs, and then pretty simple dish, 3 components. We serve it with some raw shaved cauliflower as well.
Yeah.
It just flies out, absolutely flies out. It's really rich and buttery and delicious, You can't go wrong with a bit of burnt rosette on fish, really.
That sounds good. And the wood-fired oven, that's not hugely common in most kitchens, is it?
No, it's actually there. We're starting to since I've took over the kitchen, we started playing with it a little bit more. Really, Euro used to do pizzas back in the day for years and years
or bread
and
or something
so
like
it was
that.
it was a wood-fired pizza oven, But we're using it for cooking other things now. It's just been playing around with different cuts of lamb in there recently as well. Because I was down in Otago a couple of weeks ago, taken down there by the produce company for this Amiga lamb project they've got going on down there, and so lamb that's been reared for the perfect fat content. So we got in a whole lamb last week. It was just before I went down to Bluff, actually. Broke it down and been playing around with the cuts, doing certain things in the wood-fired oven, going over to the coal pepper and hanging a leg of lamb above the wood-fired grill for 10 hours and different things. So playing around with a lot of lamb.
So hanging it above the grill to...
Slow cook, you just got to get it at the right level above the fire and just let it slowly to grow. It's like slow roast. Anything slow roasted is delicious, right?
Yeah. Have you been to that Argentinian place in Ponsonby?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I love the way the only vegetable they had on the menu was potatoes.
Working on Waiheke for a year and a half, I worked with a couple of Argentinians. There's a massive Argentinian community on Waiheke Island. They work a lot of the hospo jobs, and I had
same here. Yeah,
worked with a couple for about a year at the boat sheds. Absolutely lovely couple, and we would go around to their place for barbecues quite regularly, and they know how to cook a piece of meat on a fire. This asador, the cross, the lamb on a cross sort of thing. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
So is that slow cooking thing quite common there too? It almost reminds me of southern, not South American, like South America, but south of the USA style. Have you eaten
Southern American?
Yeah. Have you traveled to the States and eaten any of those places where the dude's on the grill all night or on the fire pit all night?
Do you know what? I've only been to America once. That was the year before last. I spent a week in New York and was on a bit of a food odyssey. Spent way too much money on eating out. Most expensive meal I've ever had. But absolutely amazing. But I've never been to Southern America. No, I really want to go. And to Central America, to Mexico. It's the regional differences as you go through South America, because I know quite a bit about the cuisines from study and from meeting people from the countries and
hugely
picking
different.
up cooking tips and techniques from them.
Yeah.
And the further down you go, by the time you get to Argentina, it's all about barbecue and slow cooked meat. Whereas Central America is more your masa and your tacos and empanadas and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant even just through the United States, because I think that's true as well. There's such a variation regionally, eh? So what was the meal in New York?
I had lunch at 11 Madison Park, which is sort of a bucket list restaurant for me to check out. It's unbelievable.
Did you only get a booking because
3
someone
Michelin star.
pulled strings for you or whatever?
No, I made the booking myself.
Yeah.
Like those restaurants, people say it's impossible to reservation. It's not. You just got to wait on the phone. I waited on the phone for maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
It was like midnight our time.
Well, that's just like being on hold to a bank here. So.
Exactly.
But with a better result.
Or the transport agency or something. So it's I've been to a couple of those restaurants before. We do actually have to make the bookings like well in advance, but and I've waited online for about an hour once to get a booking back in the UK. But for me, it's I have no qualms of going and spending that money on a meal
stunning?
like that. It was unbelievable. Yeah, those 3, like the one at 11 Madison Park, 3 Michelin star.
Yeah,
just
not many of those around.
Out of this world. It's the first 3-star that I've eaten at as well, and it was just it's the service just impeccable. Absolutely impeccable.
I think there's like one in Australia. You probably know this better than me. I don't think there's many around, eh? 3? Or maybe there's one in Melbourne.
There's none in Australia, actually, because they don't have the Michelin guide.
Oh.
No. The Michelin guide's like generally Europe, America, and in Asia now as well. But it's quite interesting because I said like about 6 or 7 years ago that Australia will have the Michelin guide within 6 or 7 years. I think they're going to get it pretty soon. But at the moment they have the hat rating system though. There's like 1, 2, 3 hats, which is the good food guide. Yeah. Which is like just as renowned really in Australia. If you've got 1 to 3 hats, then you are on top of your game. You've got restaurants like Bray, which is out just outside of Melbourne, I believe. Yeah. And that they've actually just got a cookbook coming out, which looks absolutely spectacular. But they're a 3-hat restaurant, and it's impeccable standards. Yeah.
So where does the Michelin thing come from? It's French, I presume. It's got a heavy tradition with it. It's
the Michelin guide. It originally started as a trucker's guide for for where's good to eat on the road, and it was rated by like ranking.
Michelin tires.
So if you buy the Michelin guide now, there's like hundreds of thousands of restaurants, like hundreds or thousands of restaurants in these guides. It's only X amount of them have the star rating. Yeah. Yeah. But if you make it into the... I've got friends that have had restaurants in the UK that made it into the Michelin guide without a star, but it's a massive accomplishment. If you're in the guide. So but if you get the star... Well,
someone, or more than someone, obviously, a bunch of people have got the great job of just going around as many restaurants as possible and seeing if
wouldn't that be great?
It would be. You'd have some amazing tales of absolute shitters, as well as absolutely amazing. You'd have to try it all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you find that as well? Like that. Because you do have such a knowledge and so on, palate and so on and stuff, that you can also feel hugely let down. Sometimes eating out.
On occasion, I feel disappointed.
It would be totally ridiculous for you to say, "Oh yes, at this place, at this address." I'm not meaning like that, but does it almost put too much expectation on the?
Not really. I mean, I'm not a food snob. I'm really not. Like I appreciate everything I eat. Coming from a place where I could never afford to eat in a restaurant to now being able to afford to actually dine out and have a social life in that way, I appreciate every single thing that goes in my mouth. Really. And I'm not a snob, I'll go and get like a $10 plate of dumplings or go and spend $600 at 11 Madison Park, but like obviously that's like few and far between that happens. Yeah. But no, like obviously I always form my personal opinions when I eat out somewhere. I don't always share them with my dining companions, but at times I do, like especially like if a new restaurant opens up or people ask what it was like when you went there, I'll always be diplomatic in my response. If the food if there was a dish that wasn't quite up to scratch, I would say what I thought could have been done better with the dish. But generally speaking, I'm not a food snob. Like I said before, I can. I didn't think so at all. I just know that anything that you get really into, it's hard not to form a personal opinion, right? When you've got like a knowledge base of something.
Well, I was going to say, like, so I'm not I don't think I'm a music snob, for example, but because I've spent a reasonable amount of time backstage in different capacities or whatever, blah 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 blah,
doing the DJ thing.
Just whatever, event management, whatever shape or form it's taken. A particular interest I've taken in music as well. I know exactly what you mean with the dining out thing. It's like if I go to a gig and I'm with a bunch of people who are just with me there having a good time, I'm not going to critique it
Yeah.
in front of them,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that's like,
Yeah.
it's just not a very nice thing to do for anyone.
I do have certain friends that when we go out, like, we'll talk to each other about, like, not just the food, but the service, the aesthetics, everything. Because I've got a mind for everything when I walk into a restaurant, from the greeting down to when I leave, every
What do you
single
like?
thing.
What do you like from all? Because I think this is a universal topic for everyone, and it'd be interesting to hear it from a chef, a head chef. What do you think?
What makes good service?
What makes good ambience, good service?
Oh, it depends on the setting, really, doesn't it? But I think service in general, like, should be warm and friendly, not over intrusive, and I like a personality to come across at the same time as being well informed about what's going on in the restaurant, with the menu, with my food, with what I've ordered, and just overall, I want to have a bit of a yarn as well, like, it's like when I ate at 11 Madison Park, I dined solo, so it's just me going there. I was in New York by myself. I was en route to the UK and took like a 6-night stopover, and I went by myself for lunch, and just the level of attentiveness from the staff, like, I got basically, like, 5 to 10 minute conversations out of all of their senior management, and talked about, like, industry and whatnot. And it's quite interesting being in one of the best restaurants in the world and receiving that kind of service, which really isn't that much different to, like, good service that I've received at a cafe in Wellington. Like, obviously there's more people there. There's more people topping up my water glass, bringing the food. The food's more complex, so it needs more explaining, but the bare bones of it is that it was friendly, warm, and attentive, like, and not over intrusive. Like,
do you think it's sometimes a big ask when the majority of our front of house staff are on just above or on minimum wage? Because I noticed when I was in Australia, just the level of extra pay per hour seemed to make for slightly more willing staff. Do you know what I mean? I find that funny in the industry here.
I think it's like all levels, all tiers and levels of industry. Like, really, the longer you've been doing it, the better you're paid.
Yeah,
obviously, like,
but that's what I mean. Is I think in New Zealand, I don't think front of house is encouraged so much as a career option. Maybe it's because most people inevitably are owner operators or something. I'm not sure. But it felt like in Melbourne you could actually go step up in that, and as you say, end up,
Again, I think that's a population thing. There being more people in Melbourne, more people out eating and drinking, more people out and about. I think in New Zealand, like, we're slowly getting there with the amount of people that take it seriously. But the thing is, like, a lot of people disappear to Melbourne, like, from the industry. They go over to Melbourne or to Sydney because, like, the grass is greener. Supposedly, like, better money, same, like, more expensive living costs, but better money. I don't know. It is hard to inspire people to work front of house. Not because... No, that's the wrong thing to say completely. It's not hard to inspire people. I think that when you're picking your front of house staff, you just need to... You employ the attitude more than the skill set.
Absolutely.
Like, if you pick someone that's warm and friendly and can hold a conversation, then they're going to be able to produce... They're going to be able to deliver better service than somebody that's, a little bit rigid and doesn't like talking to people and a little bit, like, introvert. Like, they're not going to make a good server. Like, you can pick these things. And I know a few people in the industry in New Zealand that are, like... that can pick these people out of a crowd, and put them in a restaurant.
That's probably
and train them.
Valuable skill.
Yeah.
We
know some pretty talented people in this industry. Like, it is, and it's about training. It's like finding the right attitude and the right personality and training it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have, you can find a waiter that's got 20 years of waiting experience, but they're frigid and rude and rubbish at what they do. Like,
you can tell they want to stab you in the face. Even
And the thing about, like, you just got to get them excited as well. Do you know what I mean? You get them on board. Like, you're not, like, you have to. There's a trade-off of knowledge. You need to find the people that want that knowledge. Like, 'cause you can't pay them great because the margins on making money in a restaurant are so wafer thin. That you need lower paid staff. But, like, what I always got out of my job at a lower level, when I was at the lower levels with not getting paid well, was the trade-off of knowledge. I was seeking as much as I could to get further ahead, like, and it's the same with front of house. Like, there needs to be better front of house training, and it needs to be taken more seriously as an industry. And then,
I think that's overall that's a very fair and measured response. Totally.
And retain them. Don't let them go to Melbourne, like, because everyone goes to Melbourne. I mean, Melbourne's great. Don't get me wrong, but, like, New Zealand needs to be progressing just as fast as Melbourne is if we're going to be taking it seriously.
I won't say this would be absolutely ridiculous of me to say it was pioneering of me to move to Melbourne, because it wasn't at all, because people have been doing it forever and a day. But I happened to move over before people really started moving over all the time. And as you say, particularly it feels like, particular styles of people end up in different places. So yes, the kind of creative-y, hospo-y, et cetera, person often ends up in Melbourne from New Zealand. And like last time I was there, I don't think I talked to one barista who didn't have a really thick Kiwi accent and full sleeve tats, and like the whole, it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The whole of hospo scene there has become Kiwified, which is great.
Well, Kiwi services going back to what we said right at the start about coming over here from the UK and noticing the differences in the scenes, that was something as well. It's just like the Kiwi service is so warm and friendly, people generally are quite nice here. And that makes for a good hospitality scene, right?
The ones you've met, yeah. And what about, you talked about, I was just thinking to close that off, I was thinking, an interesting thing with you saying with the progressing and learning and knowledge. Yeah, one thing I have noticed that's really cool is the sort of the person who starts off junior, front of house or whatever, and, actually whether or not they have the plan from the beginning ends up being an operator themselves, Like, I think that's a really great thing that can happen for going through that is, okay, I've learnt so much about how all of this works. Now I want to go and try and do my own thing without having gone to business school, without having gone to whatever school, kind of that handing the mantle. So what about ambience, or is it ambience or ambience? We talked about, this is just a preference thing. Some people will like this, some people will like that. What do you like when you're dining somewhere? Look-wise or, feel-wise?
Again, this is such a broad answer. But it depends on what I want. Like if I'm going to say fine dining, I want a calm dining room with a little bit of background chat. Higher ceilings maybe, like with nice tablecloths and nice linen napkins, and a calm feeling in the room. But when I go to at Bangkok, which is just across the road from here, right? I go there quite regularly with my girlfriend, and that is wooden tables, stone walls, and there's constant noise in there, and there's hustle bustle. I love it. It's a small shop. There's a lot of noise, and I'm paying me and my girlfriend is paying $30 to eat like kings.
It's
between
crazy,
the two
that
of
place,
us.
right? And it's kind of this
amazing,
weird Kiwified Thai. It's like this really rich take on Thai.
It depends because I do eat out quite a lot. It really depends on what mood I'm in. Depends on the ambience.
Fucked if I'd go home and cook if I was you. It makes sense that you.
I do cook a lot more. Well, I do cook a lot at home, obviously.
Yeah.
My girlfriend makes sure of that.
Can she cook?
She's a great cook,
Yeah. Oh, I was hoping you'd say she wasn't, and you'd get in trouble.
I do have a habit of taking over, though. It's like she'll start out... She's an avid home cook, though. Yeah. She's great at it. Yeah.
Oh, taking over or lending your valuable...
Well, that would be it. She starts off cooking and I sort of jump in and... then I complain that she doesn't cook enough sometimes. Whoops.
My last question I had from someone, I don't really get why you'd be feeling bad about this, but David, probably 42 from Hamilton, asks, should I feel bad for using non-stick pans and utensils?
Strange question. No, David, you should not.
Yeah. Why would he ask that?
I wouldn't feel bad about using non-stick pans. Going back to the fish question before, like how to cook a piece of fish, I'd say that it cooks better in a skillet just because I like that kind of blackened, roastiness to it. But, a non-stick pan is a great way if you to help things not stick, I guess.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, everyone get it.
Thanks, David.
Cheers, David. Put that on your Tinder profile.
So you say you got plans in the future, start your own place,
eventually,
start a Vice land type thing. You seem like the sort of person who'd hold a show or whatever quite well. Have you thought about doing something like that?
If someone came and offered me one, I probably wouldn't say no. At the moment, I'm just taking steps in my career to kind of, I don't know. I figured out when they put me down in Wellington at 25, and I was like, okay, this is me gonna really grab the bull by the horns. I was already passionate about wanting to about cooking and wanting to my thirst for knowledge, but once I actually started running kitchens, I was like, okay, I can actually see myself owning my own business.
Yeah.
Like once I learned how to run a kitchen, how to make money in a
Yeah.
kitchen, and so like since then I want to step it up. From Pravda, Matterhorn, Euro, all different styles of restaurants, all
Yeah.
different styles of cooking and technique and everything. Being able to run these places and running a place like Euro, which is an absolute beast. It's like it's
Yeah.
just adding strings to my bow to figure out
Yeah.
what I want to do. And I've found myself now with this broad, diverse range of skills that I can basically make just about anything that's asked. And if I don't know how to make it, if I read a recipe, I can make it just from having like other base knowledge. And it's just figuring out what I want to go into. Like I don't want to start a fine dining restaurant. I'd love eventually to have a fine dining restaurant, but I prefer casual eateries. Places like at Bangkok,
bistro kind of style,
or doing one thing really well.
Yeah.
You get people that make their millions like
Federal
making
Street
cakes.
Deli. I really like Federal Street Deli.
Casual, good. Like everything's delicious, everything's tasty.
Yeah.
Like it's always packed. Like that's going in from a business point of view. I want something that people are going to come to regularly.
Yeah.
If I can give someone a meal for between $10 and $15 and they see me 3 times a week, I'd rather do that than just take $50 off of someone once a month.
Yeah,
and giving people good quality value for money, because I think that's something that's getting lost in translation a lot as eateries get more and more trendy. That you don't want to go out and spend $20 on a burger. Granted, it might be a good burger, but I think you got to keep the cost of things down.
Although is $20 really that much for a burger? I know what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
To sit down and have service, no, $20
to get
is
people
not
through.
too much.
To get
but,
people through, yeah.
I love baking and making cakes. I'd love to own like a little deli. So you go to Ripe over on
Greyland,
Richmond Road.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing place. You walk in there, it's just like an array of colour and display with all of their deliciousness. It's just something like that.
With cakes makes me just segue in my head to desserts, and is it true when I've heard that desserts are some of the most challenging dishes to prepare for chefs?
Sure, a pastry chef will tell you that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not dissing the pastry chefs though. At all.
I had a chef. I actually had more than one chef tell me to just stop making my own pastry and just buy it frozen. Like for being at home, I mean. Because it is quite a thing to.
It's like
around.
a skill. Once you've learnt it, you can repeat it quite easily. It's like learning the skill and being able to replicate it. Pastry as a whole, saying pastry section in a restaurant, it's just as complex as any other section, if not more. Like the desserts at Euro, they probably had the most components per plate, as opposed to the rest of the a la carte menu. But I mean, everything takes time.
And the presentation's got to be nuts. It seems like it's got to be particularly perfect. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're there, before you go, there's a black bag there. It's just there. Yeah. Don't worry. There's nothing alive in it. That's the awkward satchel of Segways.
Is there something in here?
Yeah. We just pick one of those pieces of paper and answer it.
The awkward satchel of Segways.
Can't read my writing?
No. Describe what?
The awkward satchel of Segways.
Describe your worst haircut and how it came about.
Oh God, that's actually a great one. My friends down in Wellington will be able to attest to this. I had really long hair for a long time.
Yeah.
I had a ponytail for probably about 6 years. And when it finally came time to chop this ponytail off, I didn't go. So I've got this sort of side thing going on now.
Yeah.
I didn't go straight for the mad fade. I went through stages of getting it shorter.
So you had a mullet?
No, it didn't ever turn into a mullet. The best way to describe it, as one of my friends said, would be the Rachel. Rachel for Friends. It turned into this mess of I don't know what they did to it. It ended up with a fucking girl's haircut. Can I swear? Is that okay?
Sure.
It was absolutely terrible, and I rocked it for about 4 days, and I was just had to go.
Where were you working
I had
at
to
the
go
time?
back. I was at Pravda.
Did you have a fringe? Did you have bangs?
No, it was all it was still long, and I was going for that kind of you being able to tuck it back behind the ears look, but it just backfired completely. So then I went and got it all cut off. But I'd say that would probably be the worst.
I'm pretty happy that you pulled that one out of
It's a great
because I'm
story.
just sitting here trying to picture you.
Yeah, and if anyone's listening to this that knows me in Wellington, they'll have a good chuckle about that because it was horrendous.
Maybe did you get any photos?
There's a few. Like,
Maybe if someone can get in
Facebook.
contact, please, we'll put that up for the photo of you on the
Oh, God,
podcast.
no.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. It was sort of we were all over the shop, but that was great. We covered a lot of different stuff. Good luck, and
Cheers. Good
yeah,
fun.
we'll probably finish there.
Can you plug my Instagram account? On
Yes.
It?
And what's your Instagram account?
It's a Rickett 85. Bit of a bad name really, but its title is Chef Ricketts. You can sort of check.
Hang on, is it Chef Ricketts or A Ricketts 75?
It's at a Ricketts 85.
Are you Adam Rickett or Adam Ricketts?
It's Rickett, no S, but I get called on every time there's a write up or something about me. Like they say
yeah.
Ricketts,
But then you went
but
and
it's
called
actually
you
Rickett.
went and called your Instagram Ricketts.
No, so it's a Rickett 85. And then Chef Ricketts is the name. I'm a little play on it, because I'm
Yeah.
always like, there's no S at the end of my name. But then for my name on Instagram, I was just like, yeah, Chef Ricketts, why not?
That sounds horribly confusing, but I'll do that.
But
okay?
Rickett 85,
Okay.
the year of my birth.
Yeah.